Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Mastering Policy Management, 3 Best Practices for Accountability and Compliance. We are going to spend the next 25 minutes walking through some key strategies to modernize your policy lifecycle, and we're going to follow that up with some time for live Q&A. But you don't have to hold on to your questions. There is a Q&A chat in your meeting window. So feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation and we'll answer the ones that we have time for live. And if we don't get to your question, we will be following up via email after the presentation. I am Kristen Baskett. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at NeoGov, and I'm going to be your host today. So let's go on to the next slide and I will introduce today's speaker. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting with Nick Bachniars. Nick, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Kristen. Good morning, everybody. Nick Bachniars. I'm a solutions engineer here with Power DMS. I've happily been with the company now 2 years, and I come from a background in public safety. I worked as a state trooper for the state of Colorado, did 8 years of patrol. Then I transitioned, I conducted fraud investigations for an additional 9 years. So pleasure to be here with everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. I'm so glad to have you with us this morning. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I wanted to start our conversation today with a quick scenario that probably sounds familiar to most of you. In a lot of organizations and agencies, policy management still looks like a mix of giant paper binders, shared drives, a lot of email chains, and while that might technically work, it does create a lot of friction in day-to-day operations. Employees are spending a bunch of time trying to figure out which one's the right document, trying to confirm that it's the latest document, the latest version, or even just like figuring out where it's stored to begin with. So next slide, please, Nick. And the bigger issue here isn't inefficiency, though that's like a pretty big problem. It's actually the risk that comes from inefficiency. When employees can't easily access policies or stay current with updates, they don't stop working, which is a good thing. They keep moving forward, and they're often relying on information that they think is correct. And that's where things start to break down a bit. Outdated procedures tend to lead to confusion. Confusion leads to inconsistent execution. And that's when unintentional policy violations start happening in day-to-day work. They're not meaning to do things incorrectly, but they are simply lacking the knowledge and the understanding of the most recent policies. So to layer on top of that, this lack of clear documentation or audit trails, and suddenly it's not just an operational problem, now you have a compliance problem. When something goes wrong and you have an audit or an investigation or a legal challenge, the question becomes, can you improve what employees knew? Can you prove when they knew it? And can you prove how they were guided? And for a lot of organizations, that's just simply something that they are not able to prove. And we see this all the time. Teams are not failing because they don't care about doing things correctly. They are struggling because the systems that are meant to support them aren't clear or aren't keeping pace. So what starts as a simple access issue can quickly snowball and compound into confusion and violations and ultimately real liability. Next slide, please, Nick. So to combat that, today I wanted to talk you through 3 best practices that a lot of the organizations we work with here at Power DMS are using to solve this problem. These practices help you save time, they're going to help you reduce risk, and they're going to help create that layer of accountability across your policy lifecycle. The first is access, centralizing and digitizing assets to create a single source of truth. That's the first step. Second is process, automating where it makes sense, while still keeping humans in the loop and ensuring that stakeholder reviews are streamlined. And then finally, we're going to look at proof, establishing proof that compliance tracking is in place and that you are audit ready. So let's go to the next slide and talk about the first best practice. The first best practice is to centralize and digitize policy access, as we said. And at its core, this is about eliminating what many teams are experiencing today, which is like a paper scavenger hunt. I think of this like the Easter egg hunt that my kids were on last weekend, only we're not looking for Cadbury eggs. Employees are out there looking for policies. They shouldn't have to guess where these policies live. They shouldn't have to dig through folders. They shouldn't be carrying around giant binders just to do their job effectively. When documents are scattered in this way across different systems, it really does slow people down, and it increases the likelihood that they are using the wrong information. The goal here is very simple. We are wanting to help our customers create a single source of truth, one place where all of their mission critical documents live, where employees know where to go, they know what they're looking for, and they're able to get exactly what they need. Next slide. So this is where policy comes in. Policy acts as a secure, cloud-based central repo for policies, procedures, and job aids. So not just policies, policies plus more. Everything is housed in one place, fully organized and very easy to access. One of the most powerful aspects that Nick is going to show us here in a moment is search. So instead of just searching titles or headers of the policy, our solution actually searches the full content of these documents so employees can find exactly what they need in seconds. So there's no more digging, no more guessing, no more hoping that somebody named that file, something that you might be able to search. And because it's cloud-based, employees always have access to the most up-to-date version from anywhere on any device. So right away, you are removing inefficiencies and reducing the risk of outdated information being used. Next slide, please, Nick. And as you're thinking about searching through policies for information that you and your teams need to do your jobs well, I wanted to call your attention to our newest feature in policy. This feature is in beta. We are planning to launch this in the second half of FY26. And this feature is all about AI. So we are adding assistive AI to policy for natural language search. So this AI-powered natural language search allows employees to ask real-world questions in plain language, just like you would, ask a friend. You are able to ask policy and receive clear answers that are directly from the policy. And it's going to link out to that exact source content so that you can read the policy in its entirety. It's going to take you to the section of the policy that's relevant to the question that you asked. And why does this matter? Well, it's really cool, first of all, but it also reduces the time to get clarity. Employees can ask situational questions and receive immediate, understandable answers without scanning through the entire document. It removes keyword guesswork. Staff can search the way that they naturally talk and not guess based on what they think that document might be titled or section names, which can be sort of a hunting exercise. And then finally, it's going to provide answers with responses, including that direct link to the relevant policy section so that you can verify and explore further. This new feature is going to help all of your employees engage with policies in a more meaningful way. And as I said, I want to reiterate, it is in beta testing now, and our plan is to have this in the hands of all of our customers by the end of the year. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, you can tell. So Nick, why don't you take the reins here and show us what's coming up here for content search?
Absolutely. So on my screen here, I have the home screen for Power Policy where I'm logged in as an administrator. Now that document repository storage here, all critical content can be stored. And let's think broad beyond just policies. This is document storage. So you can store videos, you could have sitemaps, memos, any critical content. So for example, if I go into my documents, notice there's folders, you can have subfolders and then documents within those folders. Everything is permission-based. So if I come up to my documents and I search keywords, I'm only going to see content that I have permission to. Now in my search, it's going to look for the word maps. Anything that has the word maps will populate below. And as I indicated, you can store those information as well beyond just documentation. Now you can also include tags here on the bottom right. So any content you can search by a tag. So if I'm part of, say, the SWAT unit or K9, I can create a tag for that. And all my documents, I can just search and say, give me all the SWAT tagged items, and it'll list those as well. Beyond that document storage, here's the AI feature down here. So if I open that, and in this example, I asked it, when do I activate my body-worn camera? It will search my critical content only that I have access to within Power Policy. And it's going to give me a quick summary here when I would activate the body-worn camera. And at the very bottom, any and all documents that pertain to it are available for me to click, easily find, and easily access.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Next, I want to talk about automating reviews and version control. So let's go to the next slide. And this is where we start to address one of the biggest operational bottlenecks in policy management, which is the review and approval process. In a lot of agencies, this process is still quite manual. Policies are routed via email or even, shuffling paper, and that creates a lot of delays and confusion and lack of visibility. Reviewers may not be working from the same version, and documents end up getting buried in that way. Policy managers end up spending a lot more time tracking the process than actually improving the content. And the best practice here is to implement a structured automated workflow. You want the system where policies move efficiently from draft to approval, where multiple stakeholders can collaborate together and nothing gets stuck. With policy, workflows are fully automated. So that is something that we offer our customers. And they are routed electronically for review and approval, and multiple reviewers can work simultaneously. So you're not waiting on just one person at a time. You can set review cadences like annual reviews, and the system will automatically notify the right people when it's time to take action. That's the first piece. The second piece that I want to talk about is just as critical, and that is version control. So when a policy is updated, Power Policy automatically archives the previous version and ensures that only the current version is accessible. And this creates a true single source of truth. And to make these updates very easy to understand for the user, employees can view a side-by-side comparison with color-coded highlights showing exactly what has changed since they looked at it last. So instead of rereading the entire document, they can quickly digest what's changed and move on. So that's a really big time saver, and it dramatically improves adoption. Next slide, please, Nick. So now we're going to transition over to demo once more, and Nick is going to show us these automated workflows and approval routing.
So with the approval process, keep in mind anything that requires your attention populates here on a to-do list. If I view more, these are things that require my attention. If I go into an approval process, it's indicating that it's my turn to review the document, provide any editing, comments, or viewing. Now the document populates in a PDF. You can always extract a document and edit on desktop, and it will open in the version of software that you have. For example, if you have Microsoft and you utilize Word, it would open in a Word document. Much like our document storage, everything is permission-based. So if I'm part of a workflow, I may have viewing permissions or editing permissions. In the workflow, you can preset templates. So let's just say, for example, command staff. You can attach a workflow and automatically have the applicable staff in there versus having to go back and install them one for one. Now in workflows, you can have individual users or groups. So you can group individuals to workflow. And in my example here on the right, you can have different steps. So you could have a step 1, step 2, and go through that workflow. At any time from that template, you decide you need to loop in someone else, say from a legal department, maybe from city council, you can add a step manually and loop them into that workflow. And again, with permissions, have view or edit access. As it goes through a workflow, you have a discussion tab. The discussion tab is like an internal chat within this document. All this information is stored and tracked with the policy changes. And as I scroll down, I can see what the individual did. They reviewed it. If there's any editing comments, and if I look at a document edit, I can click into it as an administrator and say what was changed, and it will highlight and show me the old on the left and the new on the right, so I can see what that individual changed on that. Now, if I go into manage my document, this is where your single source of truth comes in. Again, displaying one draft version, which I'm currently working on, one published version to my staff. When I move my draft and publish it here, the current published version gets moved to the archive. The archive always stores by date. And again, any notes, edits, all documentation will stay with that. So if you have to go back and say, where were we on this policy 2 years ago? What were we enforcing at the time? All that information is available at your fingertips. That review process, again, you can set and say on a cadence, I need to look at this document or loop in individuals on maybe on a specific date, yearly, and that'll populate as a review on your home screen for that to-do list. In my document too, that side-by-side comparison, I can come up and look at it and say, I would like to know in this workflow, where are we at today with the document? So on the left, it's showing me when the document first started editing and currently where we are on the right. Anything in red has been deleted from the document, green's been added, and a yellow is an edit.
Awesome, thanks, Nick. Let's go ahead to the next slide for our final best practice, which is proof. And this is where everything really starts to come together, because at the end of the day, it is not enough to just be publishing your policies. You need to prove that employees have received them, reviewed them, and acknowledged them. And this is where a lot of agencies that we work with struggle. Tracking signatures manually is time consuming, it's difficult to manage, things get missed, and it's often unreliable. And when you can't produce that proof quickly, it increases your exposure during, like we mentioned before, those audits or investigations or legal situations. And the best practice here is to make compliance tracking proactive and automated. So with policy, employees receive automated notifications when they need to review and sign their policies. The system captures those electronic signatures and gives you real-time visibility into that completion status. So instead of chasing people around, lots of Slack and Teams messages, emails, you can instantly see who is compliant and who is not compliant. And from an administrative standpoint, this reporting becomes incredibly simple, which we're going to see in a moment. You can view dashboards or run detailed reports, and you can do this very quickly. It's available in seconds. There's no more digging through paper files or doing pivot tables and spreadsheets. And then finally, from an audit perspective, Power Policy allows you to organize all of this documentation in a way that aligns directly to accreditation standards, so that when that audit request comes in, you can have the confidence that you are ready and that everything is in order. Everything's structured, it's accessible, and it is easy to produce. Next slide, please, Nick. All right, so this is where we're going to head into our final demo of the day, and we're going to show everybody how much easier it would be to prepare for audit time with policy.
So back on my home screen, again, under my to-do list, I have a document here for signatures. Again, anything that would require my signature would be routed to me. You can attach individual employees, or you can attach groups of individuals. On the bottom right, the message can be configured to your own individual needs. And by simply checking the box and submit signature, it's going to capture a digital signature, including the date and time, indicating that I've reviewed. Now you can also set timelines on this. You can allow a certain amount of time versus me just coming in and clicking. I might have to spend 30 seconds, a minute in the document before signing. Now, as a signature, I'm able to come in and let Power Policy do the work for me and give me a comparison from the last time I signed this document, the old version on the left, and to what I'm agreeing to sign today, the new version on the right. I'm able to again see those changes very quickly and identify what I'm agreeing to. Again, the red being deleted, a green's an added, and a yellow's an edit. In the process of those signatures as well, you're able to pull analytics on this, the analytical reporting, or excuse me, be on your dashboard here. This is for your administrators. So administrators would have a dashboard. This is just quick oversight of things that they're responsible. So if I go to my document area, it's going to show me current policies I've pushed out for signatures. I can quickly put eyes on it and say, okay, in this individual example, 5 of 11 signatures are completed. If I'm looking for individuals that have not completed signatures, I can quickly run a report straight from this screen. And I have options to filter down. I can do date ranges, focus on particular documents. And those who have not signed, you're able through the system to send out reminder emails, just indicating even deadlines, signatures need to be in by Friday, for example. Side note, all analytical reporting too, these can be sent to applicable staff, supervisors, and it can be on a recurring basis. You schedule delivery, and that could be a daily, weekly example.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for walking us through that. Let's go to our final slide, and we will go ahead and summarize what we covered today. So to reiterate, there are 3 best practices that we want everyone to be implementing when they're thinking about policy management. And the first, access, centralizing and digitizing and creating that single source of truth. The second, process, which is automating workflows, reviews, and version control. And then third, that we just saw, proactively tracking compliance and attestation. And when you implement these things, you're not just improving efficiency, you are protecting your organization and you're giving your team the tools that they need to be successful. Ultimately, all of this allows your employees to spend less time searching for information and more time focused on their core job responsibilities. So with that, I do have quite a few Q&A to get through. So let's transition to that now. Nick, the first question that I have for you is, how do new customers get started with Power Policy, and what does that onboarding look like?
Power Policy, depending on the size of your agency, you're looking at maybe 60 to 90 days for implementation. Again, getting you set up, getting your user profile set up, permissions. But with the document storage, again, any information you want to pull in, implementation can assist with and do a bulk import of your files and data.
Fantastic. Next question I had is, what is the first step that you would take to improve policy management in an agency?
I think the key benefit there is communication, keeping all applicable parties involved and informed. I think when communication's lost, then that's when information's missed, and then unfortunately has a critical consequence on the back end.
Excellent. How can organizations make compliance tracking more reliable and less manual today?
Making it more reliable is the advantage of technology. For example, with Power Policy, having a document repository, something that's going to do the work for you to remind you when signatures come up, when reviews come up, attaching workflows. It makes it seamless and easy. I know my experience from my career, we were a lot of manual paper process. It slows things down, things get lost, and things are completed timely. Tasks that could take months now could be done in days or weeks.
Excellent. Which actually kind of answers the next question potentially, which is, why is version control such a critical part of policy management?
Sure, absolutely. Just moving things quickly, efficiently, and making sure everyone's on the same page. As I like to say with Power Policy, it's one sandbox, everyone's playing in the sandbox. Keeps everybody on the same page. There's no loss in communication, things move seamless and easy. And then again, to be able to go back and have that search feature and have the information in your hands so accessible.
Excellent. Next question is about policy updates. How do you handle policies that require frequent updates or rapid changes?
So anytime there's major updates, say like legal changes, as we know, use of force, pursuit policy, you have multiple options there. You can have an administrator assigned, they can go in and track those updates, but we also have a third-party legal service that can also come in and assist with those kind of changes, track those, of course, as we know we're dealing with federal, state, and local laws on top of agency particular policy updates.
Excellent. And next question here from the chat is, does this work with medical protocols and medical director approvals?
Great question. I love the outside the box thinking because it is beyond public safety and works on all platforms. We have medical providers using them, universities. So just thinking broad spectrum, it'll work with whatever content you need. Again, with your document storage, you can be as creative as you like, pull in any content you need, and again, set up those workflows as needed.
Great. Next question is a collaboration question. How does Power Policy support collaboration about across multiple stakeholders, thinking HR, compliance, legal, and other department leaders?
So depending how that goes, say in a workflow, I know a lot of agencies will, companies will set up a workflow. Let's just say you start with HR and you run it through an HR workflow, and then you say, okay, now we're going to send it to city council, then we're going to send it to legal. All applicable parties can be looped in, and all that communication can be tracked and go across that workflow. And again, you can bring in individuals as needed. But what I like is, again, that's permission-based, because somebody in a legal department, though they may work in that department, the document may not be pertinent to them. So you have that control of who's actually putting eyes on it.
Excellent. All right, next question is, how do you ensure policies are actually understood and not just acknowledged?
Question as well. So making sure policies are understood. Again, you can set that timer on there, but we have other add-ons or additions to Power Policy, which would be recall. Recall is a way to quiz on your critical content. And a real life example for me, sitting in a patrol car, when you get a use of force policy and you see it once a year and you agree and sign to it, you're adhering to that. And there's a lot in there that could be missed or lost in information throughout that year. With Power Recall, you're creating quiz questions based on that document, and you're getting that information in front of your employees, and that could be set on a cadence of a daily basis, weekly basis. So in my example, it's going to be quizzing me to make sure I really understand what my use of force policy is. And instead of seeing it once a year, I'm seeing it on a regular basis. And the information is going to be tracked and the system learns me. So as I'm taking those quiz questions, the content I struggle on, I'll see those questions more frequently. The content that's a little bit easier for me, I'll see it less frequently.
Excellent. This actually wasn't in the Q&A from our attendees, but I'm going to throw this question in there anyway. So follow up on recall. Can you tell us a little bit about the creation of these microlearning recall cards from a training manager's perspective? So you talked about it as a user, but from a manager.
Yeah, from a manager's perspective, it's quite easy. You go in and you're creating decks. Think of like a deck of playing cards. A deck would be a topic. So let's just say body-worn cameras. Within that deck, you're creating questions and content. Now, as a manager or supervisor, you don't have to sit down and manually create every single question in the system. The AI technology will do the heavy lifting for you. You can highlight key areas. So if there's a policy update, you can create questions just on, say, that paragraph, that sentence, and create those questions and tell the system, I need 5, 10 questions. you can boost those questions. Boosting them will put them at the forefront of your staff, letting them know, hey, there's been a change, and they'll be quizzed on that content more frequently. Or to make it even easier, you can highlight the entire document and say, create 20 questions off of this document, and it'll do all the work from there. So the system's using the technology along with AI just to put that content in your hands a lot faster.
Awesome. So I've officially run us down to the very last minute, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. It's our pleasure to talk with you. Any questions that you have after this webinar, we will make ourselves available to answer. So please follow up with us. We're going to make this recording available to you as well. So you will receive the recording of this webinar for you to review later. And again, appreciate the time that you spent with us this morning, and we will be hoping to hear from you soon. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.